Alright, so today we're going to go through the prologue, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and kind of give a little overview on what the beginning of the Eye of the World, Book 1 of the Wheel of Time, is doing. We're going to give kind of a little overview of the first 4 chapters, but we're only going to discuss the prologue, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. A little overview is, when you read the prologue, you're like, okay, I get what's happening, but then as soon as you read Chapter 1, you're like, what just happened? And honestly, throughout the rest of the book, give or take, you don't really get what happens in the prologue. So I'm going to try to at least get it to where you can understand, because in the first 4 chapters, you pretty much learn about the world. You get an idea, and you get to meet pretty much the characters you're gonna know throughout this whole story as it unfolds. They're all very important, all the people you meet in the first 4. Not saying any more isn't going to come up, but in these first 4 chapters, the people that are in there, they're so important to the story. It's so awesome to be able to go back and read the stories again, see the beginnings, and realize, exactly how awesome the development of these characters become. So it's really important to read and pay attention, which is why I'm going to be doing, hopefully, a pretty in-depth enough analysis without giving away too many future spoilers. I mean, it's going to be rough, but just bear with me. Some of these videos you're going to have to come back and watch another time or two, but I really feel like this would be important, okay? So, we've got the opening prologue, and one thing that you see is that you got Luz Theron, Telamon, who's kind of walking around aimlessly, kind of doesn't know what's going on, kind of oblivious to everything, like he has no idea where he's at, and yet there's people dead everywhere. Everything is destroyed. Nothing looks right, yet he doesn't seem to be affected by his surroundings, how dilapidated it is, how bad it looks, which already should tell you that if there's people dead around you and everything is destroyed and the character is running around wondering, where his wife is, and his wife and children are dead, and he can't even recognize them, you realize there's a problem already here in the story. There's something wrong with this guy. And then this guy shows up, Baalzamon, right? And and he starts taunting him like, this Baalzamon knows this guy. And he starts saying all these wonderful things about who Lutheran is, but Baalzamon obviously hates him. So we can already see that these people were probably a protagonist and antagonist at one point. And something goes wrong. Well, Baalzamon starts taunting him because we come to realize that he's gone insane. He's literally flown over the cuckoo's nest. If you know anything about German history, Nazi history, one of the things Joseph Mengele is coined with learning or figuring out is how the brain creates multiple personalities, how the brain creates amnesic barriers over trauma to prevent you from slipping into madness. Your brain does this thing over some of the worst trauma like that you might have probably experienced as a child, and it's like super repressed. Like, it's so hard to get there, and whenever you're in counseling, you're like forced to bring those memories back. Like, that's kind of what happened here, because you find out that he killed everybody. His wife, everybody. And you also find out that everything is destroyed, and he went crazy because of something that he did. Because it talks about the counterstroke of the Dark One. That means Lutheran did something, and the Dark One countered back and did something, which is probably why he's going insane, or he went insane. But then, as we see as it goes on, that yeah, he's insane. He thinks his wife's still alive and that this guy's a good guy. He remembers him, but he doesn't quite remember him. So, this is also interesting to think about later on. Baalzamon cures him of his direct insanity. But upon that, as I mentioned, the brain creates these barriers to prevent you from literally going crazy or being an insane person. You kind of go into some sort of extreme denial. And when he's cured, he does what you think he might do. He kind of goes crazy. And then it says he travels. We don't know what travels is yet. We'll learn about that way into the future. But it says he travels, so it means that he went from this place and he went to another. And he pretty much freaked out. A bolt of lightning hits him, and out of where he's at, Dragon Mount is created. This mountain, this volcano is created where he stands. And then Baalzamon says, a few words like rada rada, rada rita ra, something like that. And that's the end of the prologue. So after that, we don't really hear much of loose there. Not really. But that's okay. We'll move on to chapter 1. By the way, that intro, it's real interesting. It's real interesting as the wheel of time turns, days come and pass. You know, it's real interesting because I did a video on the history of on why I'm worried about the TV show that's coming out, on how they can ruin it. It's because I really believe it's super easy to throw social justice warrior SJW nonsense into it instead of keeping it as the great story as it is. But it's a story about how memory fades to myth, and then myth becomes legend, and then legend becomes long forgotten when the age that gave it birth, spawns new things. This is a story of people who have forgotten their past and have to reclaim it in a very simple way. And it's going to be very simple to screw this up, but I'm not going to get into that. But I love that intro because it explains that. It explains that, these people, when you hear them talk about how what's ever happened here, 1,000 years of sheep, probably, you realize how much these people have forgotten about the world. So it's very interesting to pay attention, which is, again, and I repeat myself, why I'm doing this, because it'll help and we can go along and see all the pieces that I know are supposed to fit. So we've got Rand and Tam, and they're walking down the road. Okay, we first learn about Rand and Tam, and we learn almost immediately that these guys, right, the dad is a really good dad figure. Like, his son is respectful, so he taught him to be the same way. His son is prepared for a lot of things. He's aware of his surroundings. And so is the father. He's aware of everything that's around him. Per se, as like an adult is. He's more focused on going. As you can tell, it's kind of a situation where not much is happening, but the winter has been going on for a long time. It should already be green by this point. So it's kind of curious. It's kind of like a perpetual winter going on. It's kind of curious. We learn about something about the void, being able to throw all your passions into a flame and being able to come to peace. We learn a little bit about that and what that is and how it helps Tam in the archery competitions during Beltane. That's an interesting concept. I mean, like meditation. How they kind of snuck that right into there. But then Rand kind of gets the feeling like something's watching him. And he turns around and he sees the hooded figure behind him on the black horse, whose cloak isn't affected by the wind. And he said he could feel the hate looking at him. But then when he tries to say something and they turn around and both look, he's gone. I mean, that's typical of any story. You know, the adult's not going to see it right away. And Tam's ready to turn around. He's like, hey, you know, we'll turn around and look, you know, if you really want. You know, I'm not saying no. I mean, if he was there, he'll make tracks. But Rand's like, no, I guess I'm just being silly, but you could tell it rocked him to the core. So that's an important situation, because one of the things you'll come to realize is that, again, you realize Tam's done a real good job as a parent, because he's very aware. You know, there's another time that comes up that he feels like he's being watched, and he is. So it's very good that he is aware of his surroundings, right? He's aware of his surroundings is the case. So they get to town, and what pretty much happens here is they're walking along and they have some conversations, and then we meet Matt. Okay, Matram Cawthon. Okay, so like I said before, here we meet all of our main characters, our main important characters. This guy right here, he's I like this guy. I mean, he says something in the beginning that it's like, after you read through the whole book and you come back to this point, you're like, ha, yeah, you're a funny guy. You know, this guy had a lot, the writer had a lot planned out already ahead of time. You could just tell, but it's a funny situation, but you won't catch it until you're already done with the book and you're going back through it. But we meet Matt, and they're kind of just, yeah, here we meet Matt, we meet Brown Alvear, and we meet Sen Bowie. And we have the dialogue that leads you find out here with them talking that things are weird, that times are strange right now, that things they start talking about how the winter has gone on, you know, for too long. They talk about how there's a Glee Man here, and we come to find out that a Glee Man is, he's kind of not like a jester, but he's like a traveling entertainer. He plays music, he tells stories, he does acting, magic, things of that. He's a traveling entertainer. They're excited because they don't get many of them. And you learn that where they're at is kind of like backwoods country. You know, there's not a, they're kind of sheltered away from the world, you know, from the main world. You know, you kind of get that feeling right here at this point that oh, they got a Glee Man. Oh, fireworks. Oh, my goodness. Fireworks? We haven't seen those in years. A Glee Man? So it pretty much ends with the boys being told to take the brandy down into Brand's cellar, the mayor. And the sooner they can do that, the sooner they can see their gleemen. So, what we find at this point is this is where we end the chapter. And where the next chapter, chapter number 2 begins, is chapter 2 is named Strangers. And what happens here is that you find the kids are just being kids. They're kind of goofing off and taking their time putting this cask down at the bottom. Okay, you hear that, you know, they we kind of get a description of, like, in the beginning, like how the guys are, how the men are. They're kind of just sitting around the fire, smoking their pipes, and telling stories, and the kids are talking about kids being silly, you know. And they finally get the brandy down. You find that, you know, Matt is kind of a trickster. He's kind of a funny guy. He likes to make jokes. He likes to play tricks on people. All right, and it's funny, you know, at this point. And then we hear that it's possible that there will be a peddler, and a peddler's, you know, someone who goes around and sells little random knickknacks and things of the such. So we meet Perrin, and Perrin, he's another character. Like, out of all the characters mentioned so far, Perrin is on top. There's one more character I feel, and he's going to show up later, that I think is better. But it would be that person later, Perrin, and then Matt. Like, these are my 3 favorite characters out of the whole story, just of who they are, their development, where they go, and just who they are as a person. Like, I don't care for who Matt is as a person, much less as I love his character development and what his character is and does. He kind of, in a weird way, he reminds me of what's his face from Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson. In a way, he's kind of off the hinges, but morally, I like Perrin and this other guy a lot better, which is why they're my 2 favorite running characters. But anyways, and here we find that Rand is just feeling like he's being watched. You know, he's aware again, and then he turns around and he sees the Raven that's got its head cocked and looking right at him. And then Matt comes around and he says something about it too. And he feels like he's also being watched. Now, that's interesting. 2 characters feel like they're being watched by one thing. I mean, that's pretty astonishing. Something to keep an eye on. Obviously, they throw stones and it moves as if it's autonomous. That, like, it knows what it's doing. So, it's interesting whenever you have that happen, you know. And then they're told that, you know, they're not to be trusted by Egwene, you know, even at the best of times. So you already know that based on their lore, because what we've done is we're learning about the world. Like I said, the first 4 chapters are meant as world development. And we're learning about that the world has myths and legends and things of this nature. So ravens are seen as evil in a way. And then we meet the strangers. You heard previously about them that, oh, she looks like a highborn lady, and that this guy, Lan, has got a cloak that blends into the darkness. That's the guy. That guy is like, he is my favorite character out of all of this. Because, he's the embodiment of he's the strong male archetype. He's a bad dude. He is bad. I mean, the dude's got a cloak that fades into the background. I mean, he's like a ninja, but, better than a ninja. And I do not take that lightly. I mean, I don't know if that comes up the right way, but I love ninjas. He's like a ninja, but better. He's the dude, right? Okay, so anyways, so we meet Moraine, and we see that she's like super soft-spoken, almost like a Mother Teresa-esque kind of figure. And she's talking to the kids, and she gives them what you'll find is a silver penny, which is a lot. And you'll find that on it there's a woman with the flame on her hand. Eventually you'll learn about the dragon's fang, right? You'll learn about that, and it's like, just think about those two things and put the images together. Okay, you got a picture of that? Good. That'll be important later. Because a dragon fang is supposed to be something bad. And then that flame on the hand is supposed to be something else too. And it's real darn important to the story. So pay attention to the little things. Anyways, they give him a coin, and she says, that now they're bonded. Now, if I have something for you to do, then you will do it. If you think that that's the bond, then okay. So eventually they have like their own little discussion, and then they walk away. And then Lan just like walks out of nowhere and surprises them, because it's like, they're like, oh, he's been there the whole time. It's the thing of the raven had his eye on them, and he could tell that he was being watched. Right? You can tell when evil is over your shoulder. You know when evil is looking at you, when evil is trying to... You know when evil is there. But you immediately get this situation where there's a guy, and as you'll find out, yeah, he's standing there, and you may not know he's there, but he knows everything that's going on. So it's kind of the benevolent thing. You know when evil's watching you, but if you have a hard time believing in God, because it's like, I don't feel the presence of God, yet it's like, yes, he's still there and watching at all times. So watch out. Except that's what Lan embodies. I mean, he's like I said, he's like a ninja, but better. Right? He's the dude, man. He's the dude. You know, and whenever they describe, they say all they can say is that he looks like a wolf. It's like, it makes it like he's predatory. You know, like he's an animal. Like he's not natural. You know, that's what they're really trying to say, is it's not natural. I mean, and it's really not. Well, I mean, we'll come to find out. But again, Lan's a bad dude. So, yeah. It's real cool how they express them, you know, especially the kids, because you see these kids, Perrin, Matt, and Rand. Okay, these are our three main characters. Okay, just so you know. Okay, you haven't figured that out yet. They're already our three main characters. And to see how they are now compared to where they go, I mean, it's amazing, the carefreeness of the children. It's real important to recognize all the little things of the story, because they matter, and you really won't know until later. So again, that's why hopefully I'm doing what I can to point things out that hopefully makes sense later. Oh yeah, and if you didn't realize, the great serpent ring that she wore was an Ouroboros. They call it a symbol for eternity. So you know we're going to be delving deep into some deep mythology, especially with Matt. I mean, his character. Man, you know what? I don't even really want to get into it. I mean, his character's awesome. Again, you've got a real good story if you started reading this. So I'm going to go ahead and end the story at chapter 2, because the video is already getting pretty long as it is. But this pretty much ends with the peddler showing up. So the next video that's going to come out is going to introduce the peddler. So oh my God, the peddler. That guy. Again, we meet all the important characters in the beginning. All the characters who are like, oh my gosh, in the form of development. Anyways, y'all have a wonderful day.